something wrong with the world today. I don't know what it is. Something's wrong with our eyes. We're seeing things in a different way, and God knows it ain't His. It sure ain't no surprise. Yeah! We're living on the edge. Living on the edge. Living on the edge. Living on the edge.
At 9 p.m. on Sunday, October the 13th, 1996, we saw our son William alive for the last time. It was a sad night because his grandmother had died that afternoon and we were making plans for her funeral. When William realized he'd left his bag at the ball field, he wanted to go back and look for it. He promised he'd only be gone a few minutes, but when midnight came, he still wasn't home. By that time, I was pacing the floor and wondering why he hadn't called. I really didn't want him to go back to the park anyway, but he kept most of his tapes in his bag, so there was no point in trying to talk him out of it. Like most teenagers, he listened to music or played the guitar almost constantly. With William, lyrics or certain beats played a significant role in his life, I guess because he was shy and that's how he expressed himself. When we retrieved the tape from William's car and determined the exact sound he was listening to as he made that fatal journey down Stylesboro Road, we were overwhelmed. This music he was hearing mimics the sound of police cars and rescue units. Directly in front of Kennesaw Mountain National Battlefield Park, William's life and the music stopped instantly. At the police officer's insistence, I sat on the sofa to receive the awful news he wouldn't give me standing at the door. Then, without knowing how I got there, I found myself in the hallway trying to decide where to go. If I returned to the living room, I'd be acknowledging the concrete existence of the officers. I didn't want to do that. I wanted to escape. I could feel myself slipping into this dark despair, like the whole world was out of control and I couldn't do anything to change it. The most horrendous pain I had to deal with that night was knowing my son's broken body was lying lifeless on a stretcher someplace, and all I had was a phone number I couldn't call till morning. In the twinkling of an eye, William's life was taken away. When the funeral home received his body that afternoon, I stayed with him for a while. William died with his eyes opened. He was wrapped in plastic and he was cold and pale. I could see the indentations and friction burns on his chest caused by the impact of the steering wheel. I could see the hole in his lip and a missing tooth. I kissed him on his swollen cheek. I counted his fingers and toes and rubbed his hands and feet, just as I had done the day he was born. I looked into his eyes and he looked back. Autumn at Kennesaw Mountain National Battlefield Park is a wonderful sight to behold. The color and flutter of the fallen leaves brings a peaceful assurance that one season must end so another can begin. After the accident, the family met at the park to place a floral cross at the crash site. We looked for answers, but found only skid marks and gouged earth. We searched for a closeness we longed for, and walked away with only our memories.
How I wish you were here. We're just two lost souls swimming in a fishbowl, year after year, running over the same old ground. What have we found? The same old fears. Wish you were here.
William was a gentle person, especially with young children and animals. When he died, he owned 3 cats that didn't quite understand why he didn't come home. Our family pet was a dog named Bojangles that died the same night Will did. Bo was more than a pet. He was a true companion for all of us. That night, as I was crying and asking God to please not let William be alone, Bo got out of the house and was hit by a car too. Odd as it may sound, I actually received comfort from the mental image of our dog Spirit chasing off after my son. William's nieces and nephews idolized him. Sometimes now the younger children talk about him like they think he's away on a trip. But at other times, they ask questions as if their memories are fading. This makes me sad because our memories are all we have left.
If I leave here tomorrow, would you still remember me? Well, I must. May the good Lord be with you down every road you roam, and may sunshine and happiness surround you when you're far from home, and may you grow to be proud, dignified and true, and do unto others as you'd have done to you. Be courageous and be brave, and in my heart you'll always stay, forever young, forever young. May good fortune.
Saturday, October the 12th, the day before William died, was a lovely fall day. We had no way of knowing the tragedy that was about to strike. Bill was doing some yard work in the late afternoon, and I joined him briefly on the back side of our lot to talk for a few minutes. As I started back across the yard, I noticed the weeds in my small rose garden were taking over. There had been one yellow rose blooming all week. It was a little late in the season for a rose to bloom, but I'd noticed it from a distance. I started to pull the weeds up by the roots, but with each handful of weeds I pulled, a few petals would fall from the rose. I took a closer look to see if I could gently pick the rose and save some of its beauty for another day, but it was too fragile. The last of the petals dropped off as I continued to tug at the weeds. William made a trip to his car for something, and as he passed me on his way back to the house, he asked if I'd picked the rose. I told him no, it had bloomed its life away all week, and now it was gone. He nodded and kept walking, but I momentarily paused and thought about how William always noticed the roses, and sometimes asked if he could pick one.
And when you finally fly away, I'll be no one can ever tell. But whatever road you choose, I'm right behind you, win or lose, forever young, forever young, forever young, your rose is in bloom, a light hits the gloom on the grave.
My son's life was snatched away in the twinkling of an eye. And that man that caused his death almost killed himself too. He was in the emergency room for several hours, was taken to just to stabilize him, and then he was taken to surgery. He was in intensive care for many, many days. And although he survived the crash, he's now serving 25 years in prison. He has a permanent handicap. And I believe that his mother has probably shed as many tears for him as I have for my son. That gentleman got 15 years for vehicular homicide and 10 years for probation violation because he was already on probation for a drug offense. And he also had previous DUI convictions. He also had, to the best of our knowledge, had never received random drug screenings during that time. I suppose that the most painful reality of this is knowing that my son didn't have to die on the highway that night. His crash was totally preventable. Also, it's the most devastating and humbling reality anyone can ever imagine. And it's a pain that my family and I will have to live with for the rest of our lives. We, over the months following my son's death, began to realize that our family and the man that caused this crash, his family, we're not the only ones that suffer. It's a whole community of pain. The young man that witnessed this crash was only 20 years old, and he had to have counseling for severe depression after witnessing the crash that took my son's life. The police officer that came to our home to tell us that our son was dead, we spoke with him later, and he told us about the stress and the anxiety that those police officers in the STEP unit suffer, and the turnover that they have in that department because of the stress of having to go time and time again to tell families that they've lost a loved one. And the rescue workers that had to pull those broken bodies out of those wrecks, they have emotional scars that they carry with them for a lifetime. Our goal with War Against Broken Hearts is to stop broken hearts before they happen, because there is no cure for a broken heart, only prevention. Thank you.